Hey guys, and thank you for watching. I have been planning this video for so long. Like, I honestly have been thinking about this video for months, but it did take some research on my end, so I pushed it off a little bit. But I am here to bring you Battle of the Palettes. I do have 4 eyeshadow palettes, and these are some cult favorites. I kind of want to put these palettes to the test. I want to give you some information about the palettes, I want to show you some swatches, and I want to tell you which one is my favorite. So if you are interested in hearing the Battle of the Palettes, go ahead and keep on watching. Okay, so the way that this video is going to work is I'm going to start by giving you a little bit of information about each palette. I want to tell you about the price, if there are any products that come with it, and I also want to break down price per shadow. So I'm going to start with just straight up information about the palette. Then I'm going to go ahead into some swatches. I'm going to show you swatches of all the shades. I'm going to talk a little bit about pigmentation and texture of the shadows. And then we're going to get into more about my opinion on each shadow. What's best for travel? What do I think is the best price for what you're getting? And ultimately, which one is my favorite out of the 4? So let's go ahead and get started. Now I want to start with the eyeshadow palette that I purchased first out of this bunch, and that is the Urban Decay Naked palette. This is the original Naked palette. They've come out with so many since people started raving about these palettes, but I chose the Naked Original. This is the only Urban Decay Naked palette that I have, and I chose this one specifically for the shades. This is a very warm-toned palette. I felt like the second Naked palette was more cool-toned and the third was more rosy, so I just stuck to my warm-toned gold shades. Now you'll notice right off the bat that there are 12 shades. There are only 2 mattes though. You have Naked and Buck. These are your only 2 matte shades. Virgin has a sheen. You have some glittery ones like Sidecar and Half Baked, but even Dark Horse, Toasted, Hustle, and even Creep, your black shade, they all have some glitter and some sheen to them. So I feel like that is one downside to this palette. While you can kind of create a variety of lid looks, you really only have 2 crease shades. The Urban Decay Naked palette can be found both at Sephora and Ulta, and it's $54. When you do purchase this palette though, you also get an eyeshadow brush. And this is just a eyeshadow shader brush. I use it to really pack the shades onto the lid. But I actually really enjoy this brush. I use it a lot. I don't even keep it in the palette because I do often reach for this brush when I'm trying to put my lid shade on. Now when I was calculating price per eyeshadow, I did want to take out the cost of the brush. I'm not 100% sure about the cost for this specific brush, but when I got on Urban Decay's website, I did find that the price of their flat eyeshadow brush is $24. So just for the sake of this video, we'll say that this brush is about $24. I'm sure that it's probably not. I don't think they put a $24 brush in here, but we'll just say for the video that it is. Now each one of these shadows is 0.05 ounces. I'm pretty sure that's correct because on the back of this palette here, it said 12 times 0.05 ounces. So I'm guessing that that means 12 shades, 0.05 ounces each. So if you take the $54 price tag, subtract about $24 for the brush, you're left with a $30 price tag for these shadows. If you divide that by 12, you're left with about $2.50 each. That's going to bring us into our next palette, which was actually the second palette of the bunch that I purchased, and that is the Lorac Pro palette. I got this palette before the Pro 2 came out. This was the original Pro. All of my friends were raving about it in real life as well, so I decided to pick this guy up. The Lorac Pro 1 was only found at Ulta, I'm pretty sure, when I purchased it. I'm not 100% sure if you can get it at Sephora or not. I'll look it up and I'll let you know down below. But I did purchase mine at Ulta, and it comes with a $44 price tag. You do get this palette with an eyeshadow primer, like a little mini size, and in the mini size there are 0.19 ounces, but I've actually used up all of the primer, so I don't have it to show you. Once you open this bad boy up, you will notice that you have 16 shadows. You have 8 matte shadows and 8 shimmer shadows. I really like that variety. I like that you have several mattes and several shimmers so that you can kind of create your ideal eye look. I do also really appreciate that the black is flat matte. Now, when I was trying to find out how many ounces each eyeshadow shade was, I couldn't find it as easily as I did on the Urban Decay, but on the back of this palette it says 0.32 ounces or 8.8 grams, so I just kind of took that to be the total net weight. So I took 0.32 ounces, I divided it by the 16 shadows, and that means you get 0.02 ounces each. So the Urban Decay Naked palette had 0.05, this one has 0.02, but you can see that the eyeshadow pans are a little bit smaller as well. Now again, I couldn't find the exact price for the smaller size of their eyeshadow primer, but I do know that the normal primer, which is 0.53 ounces, is $23, and so you have 0.19 ounces for their smaller sized primer. I guesstimated that it would probably be around $5. So when I was trying to find out the price per eyeshadow, I took the $44 price tag, I subtracted out about $5 for the primer, that left a $39 price tag, divided by 16 shadows, gives you about $2.44 per shadow. My next palette was a gift, and it is by Too Faced. It is the Chocolate Bar palette. This is the only palette out of the 4 that I'm going to talk to you about that does not come with anything else. There was no brush, there was no eyeshadow primer. This can also be found at Sephora and Ulta, and it comes with a $49 price tag. Inside, you do have 16 eyeshadows. 2 of them are a larger size, the rest are uniform in their size. So the smaller sized eyeshadow pans are 0.03 ounces. There are 14 of those, and then there are 2 of the larger pans that are 0.07 ounces. You get a nice variety of mattes and shimmer shades. So you have your neutral mattes, you have one to darken up the crease, but then you also have a variety of light shimmer shades and even darker shimmer shades with gilded ganache over here. So you do get a nice variety with this eyeshadow palette. Since it didn't come with a brush or a primer, there was nothing for me to take out of the price tag. And I also didn't really know how to kind of separate the 0.03 ounces from the 0.07 ounces when it came down to price. So what I did was I took the $49 price tag and I just divided it flat by 16, so that puts you at about $3.06 per eyeshadow shade. Now, of course, I'm sure when Too Faced was coming up with this, they would have put a higher price tag on the larger shadows, but just for the sake of this video, I gave it an even flat price, so it comes out to be just over $3. That brings us to our last palette, which is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette. Now this can be found at Sephora for sure, and I'm pretty sure it's found at Ulta as well. Anastasia does have a lot of products there, so I don't know why it would not be at Ulta. This comes with a price tag of $42, and it does come with a brush. But I have to be honest with you, I'm not sure which brush it is. I do have 3 of her brushes that come in 3 different palettes. Each palette comes with a brush, and it seems like one side is always more of a fluffier blending brush, and then another side is always a little bit of a packing shadow brush. Now, when I was looking up the price of her brushes, obviously these are not full-sized brushes, but her brushes were around $18. So with a $42 price tag, if you take out the $18, that leaves you with $24 for 14 shadows. You do also have a mixture of both warm and cool tone shades. You have some warm over here, cool with Bon Fresco, and warm taupe. I feel like warm taupe, even though it's called warm taupe, in my opinion, a little bit on the cooler side. But then you have your warm shades, red ochre, real ochre, golden ochre, burnt orange. So you get a nice variety. You also have some sheens with Primavera and Vermeer. Antique Bronze has a little bit of a sheen, but then your flat mattes as well. You get the same amount of product in the Anastasia shadows as you do with Lorac. They come in at 0.02 ounces each. So when you're trying to calculate the price per shadow, $42 minus the $18 for the brush, that leaves you with $24 divided by 14 shades. You're looking at about $1.71 each. Let's go ahead and get into some swatches.
There was a time when you had me falling to the ground, like a king without a crown. Whoa. Why you make it hard? Don't let me down. You might as well be lost, but I'm found. I'm
want to start by saying that I really do love all 4 of these palettes. They all have a special place in my heart. I use them all, some more than others, but I don't think that any of these are bad. However, it might sound like that because I'm talking about them in a comparison video, but I do want to throw that out there. These are some of my favorites, and I do love them. Now, when it comes down to pigmentation and swatching, I feel like they're all very pigmented. They provide pigmented swatches. They're also very pigmented on the eyes, but I did notice that the texture was different. When it came to my Lorac and Anastasia palettes, they were a little bit softer, a little bit more creamy, and because of that, they did provide some kickback. And so I noticed that when I use a brush with these, I often have to tap off the excess because they're very creamy and buttery to the touch. That's why you get a little bit of shadow kicking back up at ya. When it came to Urban Decay and Too Faced, these shadows did not provide any fallout, but the texture was a little bit harder and a little bit more gritty, especially with the Too Faced. It didn't feel super creamy, and so I often had to go in a couple more times with my fingers on these than I had with the other 2. The pigmentation shows up very well on the eyes, but the texture is a little bit different. However, that different texture causes no fallout. So if that's something that's important to you, that's a good thing for you to know. Up until now, I have tried to keep this video very factual. I've tried to just provide you with information about each of these palettes. But from here on out, we are getting into my opinion. And I do want to say this is my opinion. If you have all 4 of these palettes, you could very well feel differently about them. And other YouTubers who perhaps have filmed similar videos may have different opinions as well. Everything from here on out is my personal opinion. So I want to start by talking about which one is best for travel. I'm someone who travels a lot. My husband and I are super into traveling, and there is one palette that I find myself reaching for every single time I travel, and it is the Lorac Pro palette. And the reason being, first of all, is the sleekness of the packaging. It does not take up a lot of room, but that's not the main reason. The main reason is for the eyeshadow selection. I do like that I have 8 mattes and 8 shimmer shades. I feel like I can create a variety. I can do a neutral look if I want, but I can also do a deeper smoky eye. So I feel like the versatility of this palette is the best out of these 4 that I have in front of me. Therefore, this is my travel buddy. The best price. Now, I feel like this one also, although I do have a little bit of data to back it up, this one is a little bit subjective as well. When I was trying to determine which one is the best price, the best bang for your buck, the best amount of money for what it is that you're getting, I looked at the price for each individual eyeshadow as well as how much shadow you're actually getting. And so I decided that the Urban Decay Naked palette is the one that is going to win best price in my opinion. Now, this was not the cheapest. The cheapest per eyeshadow would have been the Anastasia one at $1.71 per shadow. However, that was 0.02 ounces. So the Urban Decay Naked palette more than doubles that. You have 0.05 ounces, so the largest amount of quantity, and it's only $2.50. So it's not double the price that you get for Anastasia. You also get 12 shadows here, so that is 2 shadows less than the Anastasia palette. But I feel like since you get a larger quantity and you get a very nice brush, this guy here wins best price for what you're getting. Now let's talk about the packaging. Both the Anastasia palette and the Naked palette have a velvety texture. This means that they kind of get dirty easily. They pick up lint around the house. They also kind of tend to attract eyeshadows if you're getting a lot of fallout. These both do have a little bit of a magnetic closure, so you can feel it closing automatically, which is nice. The Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette is definitely the most bulky out of the bunch. It is very thick, but it does feel very sturdy. This one also has a magnetic closure, but this one, I almost feel like this one would be like the most durable out of the 4, since it is a little bit harder and it's that metal tint. However, it is pretty bulky. My favorite packaging, however, goes again to the Lorac Pro palette. For the reason that I was talking about earlier, it's sleekness. It's nice and sleek. It does feel pretty durable. It also has a magnetic closure, but since it is just so thin and sturdy, so in my opinion, this guy has the best packaging. I kind of touched on this earlier, so I won't talk about it too long, but when it comes to the most fallout, it's these guys here. The Lorac palette and the Anastasia palette have the most fallout because they are the creamiest, because they have buttery texture, whereas I rarely get fallout with the Naked palette or the Chocolate Bar palette. Okay, here is the moment of truth. But I want to hear what you guys think my favorite might be. So I'm gonna put, I think there's a way for me to put like a survey, a poll where you guys can vote for the answer. And I wanna know which one out of these four do you think I'm going to say is my favorite. So cast your vote up above. After you've casted your vote, pause me for a minute, go down below, tell me your favorite out of the four. Which one do you feel like you cannot live without? Then unpause me, and I'm gonna share my favorite out of the four. If I could only pick one, if someone came to me and said, you cannot have all four of these, give me three, take one for yourself, my absolute favorite, currently, for the time being, that I would choose if I had to give the other three up, is the Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette. This is the palette that I have on my eyes today. I love it for its versatility. I like that you can create warmed tone looks as well as dial it down with some cooler tones. I like that you have the ability to make it more matte or stick to the shimmers, but I'm just really in the warm shadow craze. Like, everybody is obsessed with warm shadows right now, I feel like, and I am definitely one of those people. So this is the palette that I reach for the most out of all of these. The palette that I reach for the least, unfortunately, is my Urban Decay Naked palette. I really actually don't reach for this at all anymore, and I have totally considered giving this up. I really don't like the fact that I only have two matte shadows, and I feel like I kind of create the same looks over and over. I really do love Half Baked, but you can get that in a single shadow. So the only reason, honestly, why I'm holding on to this is, one, it was like my first big high-end palette purchase, but two, it's the Urban Decay Naked Original. I feel like this is just much more sentimental to me, and so that's why I've been holding on to it, but I really don't reach for this at all. That's gonna wrap up this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed Battle of the Palettes. Please give me a thumbs up if you did. I do have some exciting videos coming up, so I would love if you would consider subscribing before you go so that you can be notified when my videos upload. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.